so much, Anjali, for joining. And I really want to know from you that is this the real test of the electoral democracy in the country? Because Rajiv Kumar is retiring on 18th February, and the very mentioning of this case has just happened, and now the next case is posted for hearing on 4th of February. What are you really expecting from the Supreme Court?
Well, Neelu, I think it's very clear that in any electoral democracy, the watchdog, the referee, who in our case is the Election Commission, must be independent. Under the Constitution, the Election Commission of India has been mandated to hold free and fair elections, to make sure that the electoral process is not vitiated in any way, and that when we go and cast our votes, the results are really what people wanted, and we get a government that we want. So in this situation, it's very clear that no political party in the fray who's fighting elections should be able to control the election commission, the election commissioners. The chief election commissioner, like you said, is going to retire in February, and there is a very big question mark today, because let's understand that the Constitution of India, basically, while stating that the election commission must have the chief election commissioner and the election commissioners, left the appointment process to be decided by law. The Constitution said that there must be a law by which independent election commissioners can be appointed. Now, in the absence of a law, the Constitution says that the executive could carry on that function. So what really in the Constitution, what one can understand is that there was an expectation that sooner than later, a law would be put in place by which election commissioners will be appointed in an unbiased manner. Now, unfortunately, there was no law that was enacted. So we had, over since independence, we had a system where the executive, which is effectively the ruling party, was going on appointing election commissioners, the chief election commissioner. Now, by and large, in the country, there was a sense that, barring a few cases, that elections are free and fair. Unfortunately, over time, there was a problem. People started feeling, especially in the 2019 elections, there were many questions that came up about the conduct of the election commissioners. So a case reached the Supreme Court. There was a petition in the Supreme Court to say that the ruling party can't appoint election commissioners, because then they will appoint election commissioners that are pliant, and they will want their own people as election commissioners, which essentially means that the independence of election commission finishes. And in this matter, the Anup Berwal matter, as it is called, the Supreme Court gave a landmark judgment. There were hearings, there was very detailed discussions that took place, and in that, the court basically said that in a democracy, the election commissioners cannot be appointed by the ruling party, by the executive, because that goes against the very grain of independence autonomy. Because if the ruling party, which is actually forming the government, the executive, is deciding, the referee is deciding the election commissioner, then we have a problem on our hands in a democracy. And the court, basically, what the court said was that the selection committee of the election commissioners must not have a preponderance of the executive, of the government. It should not be a biased committee, so that an independent person can be chosen. And the court said that 3 people should appoint the election commissioners till an appropriate law is brought in. And the 3 people were the Prime Minister, the leader of opposition, and the Chief Justice of India. So all 3 of them, if they were to sit in a selection committee and they were to appoint, the hope was that an independent person can be brought in to do the job of the election commissioner. And of course, the court said that the Constitution gives the right to make a law to the parliament, and till the law comes, this is what the composition of the selection committee will be. Now, what we have seen is that the government immediately brought a bill to parliament, which was pushed through. It has become a law in which the government has basically changed the composition of the selection committee from what the Supreme Court asked. The government has said that the prime minister, one minister, union cabinet minister, and the leader of opposition will sit together. So this is a 2:1. There are two people from the government and there is the leader of opposition. And unfortunately, it also goes on to say that if there is a vacancy in the selection committee, that
No, but
somebody was
actually the question
changed,
is that even in the
even then
past,
it will be held. Sorry.
right? No, but in the past as well, when the former election commissioners were being appointed, Supreme Court was seen as dragging its feet, and they did not put a stay on the appointment, saying that it'll lead to a lot of chaos, there'll be a lot of confusion because the elections have been announced. So, given that attitude, do you think that they will be able to dilute this law, and especially the section which has been challenged, the section 7 1 of the statute which has been challenged? Do you think that Supreme Court really can strike this down?
Well, I think that the Supreme Court gave a very, very clear judgment in the Anu Berwal case, where, like I said, they did put together a selection committee till the law was made. But basically, what they said was that the selection committee should not have a preponderance of any one party. It should not have a preponderance of the government, the ruling party. And now, what has happened through the law is the exact opposite of that. The selection committee that has been made under the law is not in keeping with the letter and the spirit of the judgment that the Supreme Court had given. And therefore, I think that the challenge stands a very, very good chance, because the court went into very great detail before giving that judgment. So now what we are seeing happening is complete non-compliance. I would even go so far as to say it seems like a contempt of the Supreme Court judgment, because what the government is saying is that never mind what the court is saying, we will bring a law, we will pass a law, and we will do exactly what we want. Now, even from a pure common sense point of view, forget anything else. From a pure common sense point of view, I mean, if there is a match happening, should the referee be selected by one of the teams? That is exactly what the question is today. So if the Supreme Court of India were to today hear this matter, first, it has already heard the matter and given the judgment. But now, in this particular case, when the law is being challenged, the Supreme Court simply has to, it's just basic common sense that in a democracy, in an electoral democracy, you can't have election commissioners who are selected by the ruling party. And I think that there is a very, very strong feeling in the country, which is not unfounded, that the election commissioners who have been appointed in this manner are failing to make sure that elections are happening in an unbiased manner and in a free and fair manner.
No,
So
but if you, Anjali, I'm sorry to interrupt you at this point of time, but when you're saying this, Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar, while announcing the Delhi poll dates, he came up with a big clarification saying that all these are merely doubts, and doubts in the minds of the people. He's saying that what he said in Hindi was कि शक करने का इलाज तो किसी हकीम के पास भी नहीं है. This is what he said, that no doctor had the treatment if you are doubting and suspecting all the time. And he gave a long list of clarifications that as far as the voter turnout data is there, we've given it all, we've not been wrong. As far as the names of the voters in the voters list is concerned, he says no deletions have happened. Then he tries to justify in his own way why the law was changed overnight as far as the Rule 93 is concerned in the election conduct rules, and he's saying it's almost like a breach of privacy when you come out with the footage of the polling booth inside. So all those clarifications he gave, justifying each and everything. So what can one really expect? Because Supreme Court again might just say that it's a constitutional authority. We will not get into it. So what is your feeling? That's how will Supreme Court really handle this issue now?
Neelu, everything that you've just said very clearly points to the fact that there have been many questions and doubts. So, like the Chief Election Commissioner himself said, that there were several doubts, और उन्होंने कहा कि शक की कोई दवाई नहीं है. But the reality is that in a democracy, this is not what is expected from a constitutional body. When there are questions, when people raise questions, there are doubts in the minds of voters. The election watchdog is not supposed to come in a press conference and tell people all is well and believe me that all is well. What they're supposed to do is to put out proper, actual, objective facts. Now, let me come to the points that you said he made. For example, he said that voter turnout data is all out there. Why are people questioning it? Why are there doubts? What can we do? Very simple what the election commission could have done. The voter turnout data is not something which is difficult to access. It is written statutorily in Form 17C. Form 17C Part 1, that is filled by every presiding officer who's sitting at the polling booth, polling station, is filling a Form 17C at the end of the day, Part 1, in which they say how many people came to vote, how many actually voted, what the voter turnout was, and whether that matched with the number of people who pressed the EVM button. Now, what would you and I do as an election commissioner if we wanted to truly clear the air? We would simply put out Form 17C Part 1. Now, that has been the demand from day one. We and people across the country, I would say, have been going and filing applications saying, please give us Form 17C Part 1 of our constituency, or some people have asked for the state. The election commission is refusing to do that. I myself filed an application under Rule 93.2 of the Conduct of Election Rules, which gives citizens the right to ask for this information. I filed the application in May 2024. Today we are sitting in January 2025. I have still not got that information. Now tell me, how are citizens supposed to believe the Chief Election Commissioner that all is well? Why should, in a democracy, this is a very feudal way of thinking that, look, we are there, why do you have to worry? That's not how democracies work. In a democracy, the Supreme Court has upheld so many times the right of people to have information, to know. The Supreme Court, even in the electoral bonds matter, said that voters have a right to know. They have the right to information. Why should the Election Commission of India, when there are questions, when there are doubts, try to hide information? In fact, when information is hidden, it's not shared, doubts increase. So, what was said, for example, about the voter turnout. The day after Christmas, 26th of December, the Election Commission put out a huge data set where they said this is the voter turnout, etc., etc. These are the numbers. But if you try to click on it, it makes you first agree to the statement that this is not according to statutory figures. Now you tell me, what use is that data? When there are statutory figures available in Form 17C Part 1, why should the Election Commission, more than 6 months after elections were held, for the general elections were held for the country, not put out the statutory data? When there is so much doubt that he himself is acknowledging that there was, why should the Election Commission try to hide things? And what has the Election Commission done now? And I think that is the most damning thing. The Election Commission has gone ahead and agreed with the government, the central government, to change the conduct of election rules so that people cannot access all the election-related records that they want.
Stay ahead with our cutting edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.